All right, yo, this is actually the last podcast I probably did was 2 months ago, so it feels good to get the rust off and get back into the game. Honestly, first off, I want to say thank you, Paul, for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
No, because it's just again, like I was talking about earlier in the podcast, like before we got on, it's just the time you realize as you get older. I'm only 29, but still you realize like, damn, like time flies by, and we're only guaranteed certain. So again, thank you for coming on the podcast and honestly sharing your books too. It's actually pretty cool that so shout out first off before we even continue, shout out to La Broche Bakery out in Norfolk, Virginia, for having us use this fine establishment here. I'll go around and show some videos of the baked goods. You can probably smell it through the camera here. It's how good it is right now. but it's such a great opportunity to have you on though. But I was gonna say before we even continue on, Paul, like tell us a little bit about yourself. Like who are you? Where are you from? And yeah,
I'm originally from Philadelphia.
Okay.
Can't take Philadelphia out of the boy no matter where I go.
Yeah.
And I've lived in a lot of different places, mostly all because of work. I retired recently from the construction industry where I was a developer and builder. And
what were you building, if you don't mind me asking? Anything specific?
Just about everything. Houses. I built a casino.
Oh, wow.
Some high rise. I was a development manager, and I was an OO of a big project in Florida. And sort of as you rise through the ranks and you gain more talent, you gain a bigger position in the construction industry. And those types of projects aren't all built in the neighborhood, so you have to travel to get to them.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I moved around the country building bigger projects. And towards the end of my career, I started working for the Indians, American Indians. And I flew a lot and did a lot of work with tribes around the country.
How was that? Like when how'd you even get started to that? Like, did you meet a tribe, like a Native American? Like how was explain the whole, like how you,
sure.
That's really
Much of what happens in life is luck and circumstance. Some of it is if you're prepared to accept it or prepared to do a job that is in front of you, but luck and circumstance happens. And in this case, I was working in Florida when the big crash came, and
right?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. Sorry.
I was building high rise.
Yeah.
And to make a small analogy, it's like I was a window washer, and I woke up one morning there was no glass. I mean, the market crashed that badly. So, and then I went to work for a large engineering company and doing resort development for the Seminole tribe. And then...
Sorry, so resource development is essentially like building like infrastructure, like parks, like how is that? Sorry, I sound kind of...
No, that's fine. Yeah. I should explain. A capital project for a tribe is anything that involves development, fundraising, accelerating an opportunity within the tribe that wasn't there before that they need outside financing for.
Okay.
And my exposure came through the Seminole tribe, and a fellow named Moses Osceola, who was my partner when we opened this business. And we traveled around the country and tried to help smaller tribes with these smaller capital projects, because the tribes in those circumstances didn't have the expertise to develop efficiently.
Like the carpentry and engineering skills, or just the finances in general?
The financing, the ideas, how to get it to paper,
okay,
how to get it built efficiently, that sort of thing.
Were you teaching as well, like on the side, like you were helping build it, but were you also like being like a teacher as well, helping the next generation to be like, all right, this is how to set this up, so for the next time you won't need us?
I never got to the next generation, but it was a learning experience for people who I was dealing with. They had not seen it before. And the difficulty with working with the tribes is largely a result of what we Europeans did to the tribes in the past. We have, this is history. I'm not, going off a rant here, but
no, go on a rant. I love it.
I
love history. I was just about to ask you if you're a history buff. And
I
stuff.
am very much so.
Oh, really?
Very much so. To give you ballpark kind of thing. When Europeans first landed in this what they call the New World, there were about 100 million or so estimated Indians, Native Americans in the whole country, and now there's somewhere between 4 and 8 million.
Wow.
Do the math.
Yeah.
That's not exactly a burgeoning population. So something happened along the way, and that something happened was us. We brought disease. We brought an attitude that was detrimental to tribes in general. Manifest destiny became a big part of that. But it was. I've done recently an article about this very subject. The conquering of the nation of the Indians, and I'm off track here. Stop me.
No, I love it. Keep going.
Okay.
I'll get you back on track.
Conquering of the Native Americans started with the government and the legal procedures, and there was something called the Marshall Trilogy. Marshall Trilogy was the Supreme Court Justice Marshall, who, through 3 decisions, allowed the population of the United States to basically take away everything that the Native Americans had.
So, with the trilogy, it just says you're allowed to go.
There were three different separate court decisions that made it legal, and one of which, and the last one, which was part of the legacy book, which was that no American Indian could own property, especially women. So part of the book is based on that. At the end of the book,
it's kind of so absurd just looking back now, because especially now how we have this democratic republic that's supposed to be the votes of the majority of the people, and we literally just excluded a whole population of individuals to even allow this. It's kind of obviously we live and learn, but it's just to look back on history, it's like wow, we were really gruesome.
You just impressed me a lot.
Really?
You said democratic republic.
Yeah.
Which is what we are. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know that. Most people.
No, I was ignorant of that too. No, I'm not going to lie. Probably a couple of years ago, I found out the proper term. I was listening to a podcast and well, actually, it's a democratic republic. I'm like, wait, what?
It's not a democracy.
Yeah,
it's a democratic republic, right? You're exactly right. For the republic for which it stands. But at any rate, the American Indians were decimated by the European onslaught, and it was made legal by the Supreme Court and made morally correct by the churches, who
the churches.
Sure, they said that Indians were pagans. They didn't have a right to live. They were less than, and the move to turn them Christian was an ugly thing. In many cases, children were taken away, moved to boarding homes from. They weren't allowed to speak their own language. The big theory was to get them to assimilate into the culture, which it didn't really work.
Yeah.
So
not even close.
No, what they did was just murder everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Almost honestly, in current times with the whole Gaza and Israel thing. But I know it's a whole different topic. I actually wanted to.
It's kind of the same.
Yeah. No, but I was gonna say when you first got in contact with the Seminole tribe and stuff, were you very fascinated to learn their history, from their perspective of the colonization of the Europeans into their world and stuff? And is that what helped you lead? Sorry, my mind's over racing. But I'm gonna start with that first question. Yeah.
Actually, it's a good question, and no, it wasn't. The Seminole tribe is the most successful tribe in the nation. They have been sponsored by. It's a funny story to that too. Sponsored by Wall Street money, and here's the background to that. Many, many years ago, the Seminole tribe, which was as desperate as the rest of the tribes, decided to open a small bingo hall, which they did, and became wildly successful. And because of that success, the state decided that they couldn't run it anymore because it was gambling, right? So the Seminole tribe took it to the Supreme Court, took it all the way to the Supreme, actually got to the 10th Circuit. The Seminoles' argument was, okay, we recognize that it is a form of gambling. However, if you tell us that we have to stop, then you have to tell the Catholic Church that they have to stop too. And the Supreme Court said, I am not screwing around with the Catholic Church. And that's how they got the right to put up gambling, to put up bingo halls. Now, a very clever man came into these bingo halls later on and said, the odds that are involved in bingo can be converted to a machine. And that led to the very first slot machine. And of course, the state got crazy about it and they sued. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, no. As a matter of fact, he's right. It's the same odds. You're not playing against the house, you're playing against other people. So it's legal based on the bingo scenario. Now, it's progressed since then and gambling has become legal, but that was the basis. Indian gaming is allowed today largely because of the Catholic Church.
Wow, because we as a government chose that. Oh, since they, and then he was able to see that gentleman and be like, oh, if they're allowing him to do it, why can't we?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Very
And
smart
that's the disgusting truth, though. How many things we even see today? How it's sad. It's almost like the law. It's like if you have a certain amount of money, you can get away with anything. Really,
Well,
depending.
It's been that way forever, and as slow as it changes with slow slavery. I mean, you can do 1,000 different examples of that, but eventually, up until recently, this has been a rule of law kind of country. And if you wanted to change that law, then you went to Congress, and then, went on from there. But
I was going to ask you, Paul. Have you always had this fascination for? Seems like you have a lot of knowledge with just history in general. Yeah, have you always had a fascination when you were young, or did someone excite you about it when you were growing up, as teacher or anything? Or
I had some very influential teachers as I was growing up. However, I've always been fascinated with the human story behind the history. Not so much the cold fact, but the ironies of it. The ironies and the what ifs, how battles could have turned, how things could have changed so dramatically. And think about the one event that is part of that other book, the Why book.
You want to explain?
What would the world be like today if November 22nd, 1963 hadn't happened?
Did you win? How old were you when that happened?
14.
14 years. Wow.
Yeah.
What were you doing? If you don't mind explaining.
Grade school.
Grade school.
Yeah, I was in reading class, and the teacher came in. I've forgotten her name now. She was a quiet, tall, matronly kind of woman who was very sweet and kind, and she was just crying her eyes out. And nobody knew why until she finally coughed out the fact the president was dead. And then everybody just went, what? It was a shock. And I don't know that anybody's really gotten past it because there's never been a resolve to whether or not or how he was actually murdered.
No, exactly. And there's just so many questions. You have the magic bullet theory. You have, I think it was his brain was swapped during the autopsy.
Lost.
Lost. How do you, the president of the United States, and you're going to tell me you don't have access? What? And that's absurd. I'm sorry. There's too much. And then you have Oswald, too. You dig deeper into his backstory, how he was former, I think CIA or military. I forgot what he was. I think it was Army or something. Again, I haven't dug as deep, but if you want to explain deeper on that.
Sure. Whenever you want to do, I could do Why first, and then
let's do Why, and then it'll be perfect.
Okay.
Is that your first book, Why, or what was your first book?
It's prior to Legacy. These other books were first. That was kind of a trilogy.
Smoke series.
Yeah, that's a Jack Reacher kind of thing.
Oh, really? Okay, we'll start with that series, then explain a little bit about it, then we'll go to Why, and then Legacy. So what's the story behind Smoke and
Smoke? All, It was my first foray into writing. And I, you write something that you know. So I wrote about places that I've been, situations that I think I could imagine, and then put characters that I developed into those. But largely, a lot of it was developed by what I had read, what I've read, other stories I found fascinating. So I build these characters up and let them sort of speak. The most difficult part of it was to actually write in the character's voice.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, how
it's
was
hard
that?
To do.
What was just to detach your emotions and self to a whole new individual, or what was the hard part? Just if you want to explain.
Yeah, sure. It is exactly what you said, but it's also the most dramatic would be writing as a woman. I mean, I have to adapt the voice and what would she say in this circumstance? Somebody says this. It's not Paul Eberz returning, it's the character. That's the voice that has to return the what would she say? And that becomes difficult. And but as one starts to write and starts to continue to write and starts to develop a technique, it becomes more familiar, more easier to get into that mind into that mode in your mind. and so it's a development, Smoke,
Yep.
and then Reckoning, and then finally Henry. Those 3 books.
But like you said, it's just that repetition and getting getting yourself that nice track that you can. When you get to that next book, you can easily get yourself in those characters, that mindset.
Yes.
It's almost like acting, right? If that
Exactly like acting.
Yeah. Have you done acting or anything, or not?
A
You're
little
more of a
bit,
storyteller.
More of a storyteller, but well, again, never had the opportunity.
Yeah.
But something in high school, but that doesn't count. And you're talking about the serious acting, but this kind of writing is that, exactly as you just said. You put yourself into a spot where you're in the scene in your head while you're sitting in a room or on a train or wherever you happen to be writing, and you let that character take over in your head, and then you can write, and then I can write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to produce this first one? Your first Smoke was the first ever book you made?
First one.
How long did it take? What? Yeah, these are great questions. So yeah, how long did it take you? What did you have hesitancy before you were like, oh, should I even publish it? Like, what were the questions going through your mind for this first book? What were your obstacles? Sorry, I'm saying too many questions. I'm gonna stick with those
that's
two.
good.
Yeah.
The obstacle was, well, it's an old saying, it's a wise man who knows what he doesn't know. I've always considered myself to be pretty literate, that I have read a lot, that I understand what I read, and I respect the word. So I took that and said, okay, well, I can write. Well, that's not exactly true. So after I start to write, I had some people that I knew that were also writing at the time, one of which was a pretty good author. Not my kind of writing, but he was published and he understood the dynamics of it, right? And he gave me a lot of lessons about that, and I learned from him.
Of the dynamics?
Yeah, a wise man who knows what he doesn't know.
Gotcha.
And from that, I was able to develop a system. And part of that system was the discipline to never start a book unless you know how it ended. And the reason for that is you could get halfway through the book and realize that you're not going where you want to go, or it has no place to go, and you've spent 6 months writing something and it's trash.
Okay, I got you. See, what I always thought was like, okay, some people might just make a story and then eventually fall into that ending. But like you're saying, you're going to continue on to nowhere and never get an ending.
Well, I'm not saying other people don't. Maybe they do. I hear stories about like Casablanca didn't have an ending until like 3 different endings to the movie before they finally shot it. But I can't write that way. I have to know what this character is going to say to get to that point, so that point at the end makes sense along the way. So,
and then, like you said, going back to the characters and how they're going to develop to be ready for that ending to come, because you don't want them to be an undeveloped character where they're not fully where you want them to be. Whatever lessons you want them to learn. If I'm making sense.
Yeah. You don't want it to be a point at which the reader reads what you have written and say, yeah, that's not going to happen. That doesn't sound right. Or that character, she's never going to do that. That wasn't, you want it to feel organic, like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a mystery that's exposed.
Okay. And so what is the premises of the Smoke series? Like, what's the story of it?
Well,
actually, I didn't even ask.
3 different stories. The first one is how he meets a woman who he falls in love with after a tragedy happened to him. And the tragedy that happens to him isn't revealed until later in the book. You just see this semi-broken guy who has friends who prop him up and have faith in him. But he's also very, very good at what he does, which is kind of a fixer kind of guy. And so he meets this woman who has a very diverse and way different personality and a way different lifestyle than he does. And they blend together somehow in this cosmic sense where they're connected. And then at the end, there's some things in there. It's called white collar crime, because I sort of go after the Catholic Church in a way. Yes. And that resolves. And the next book, Reckoning, is a book where she becomes the heroine, becomes under fire because she's a psychiatrist, a victim of a serial killer, and he has to step in to try and solve that problem before it ends her life. And of course he does, because there's a third book.
Yeah.
And the third book deals with the tragedy from the first book,
Okay.
which is how he got so broken. And then
Like a prequel, basically.
yeah,
kind of.
yeah. Well, no, it's not.
Or just
prequel,
more of a
it's an explanation.
reflection. Oh, explanation.
Explanation.
Okay.
If you
Gotcha.
follow the character, then
Yep.
by the end, you have to say, well, why is he like this? And then I reveal it in the third.
When it comes to these books, like, do you get a lot of like inspiration from like historical, like depiction, like relationships or anything like that, or is it kind of more just personal kind of relationships you've had in your lifetime?
Not really personal relationships.
Okay.
More, I decide on what a character should be, and then I build that character with that personality trait. And if it's a resemblance, it's only circumstantial to somebody I knew. But as far as the settings go, I write about places that like the second book it takes place in Hawaii.
Yep.
And I do a lot of Hawaiian history and Hawaiian settings and describe it so that people can feel it in the scene.
Picture themselves right in that
Hopefully.
beach, basically.
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, so I want to continue on actually to so with the first Smoke series you had and Legacy, is why the first of it's more just informational, kind of your personal opinion on like what would have happened, like if the JFK assassination didn't happen. It's more of your actual like input.
That's a good question, and the fact is that it really isn't. It's a narrative.
Okay.
And it isn't. It's a historical fiction based on what happened, and those happenings are Googleable. If you wanted to say, okay, well, isolate a chapter and say, well, did this really happen? You could Google it and say, oh yeah, there it is. And the way I explain this is that, as I said earlier, in 1963, I was in,
14.
reading class, and since then, I have taken a single thing, put it away somewhere. This little didn't make sense. And then 5 years later, that doesn't make sense. And then, that doesn't make sense. And who is this guy? And then now that I'm 75 years old, this was a few years ago, I suddenly found something that sort of tied things together. And based on that one thing, I was able to develop a whole plot line. And I'll tell you what that is. About 1995, I was working in Miami with the Indians, and I happened to be reading the Times. And in the back of an brief article in the back, there was a report that a former FBI fingerprint analysis expert had retired. And in doing so, he had one regret, which was that he had one fingerprint that he had failed to identify, and that fingerprint came from the 6th floor depository, where Oswald allegedly shot President Kennedy. And it was a little fingerprint, and it was on a cardboard box, and it would remain unidentified. And he had tried 1,000 times to get a fingerprint from archives, from the National Registries, and nothing ever matched. And then, 40 years afterwards, through Freedom of Information Acts, he finally got a print that matched that fingerprint. And it belonged to a man named Malcolm Wallace. And Malcolm Wallace, who no one knows, worked for, wait for it, Lyndon Johnson.
No.
Yes. So why was his fingerprint in the 6th floor depository in Dallas? And also, just as a side, a fingerprint on something paper doesn't last very long. So, it had to have been recent. It couldn't have been like from 7 years ago and then suddenly somebody took the fingerprint. It had to have been recent. So I started looking into Mr. Wallace and what happened. And I'll give you one piece of this to give you an idea of the depth of the influence here. Malcolm had worked for the campaign, the Johnson campaign, because he was at Texas, at University of Texas, where a lot of his people came from. Horace Busby and Clifford Clark were two of his henchmen who did a lot of work for Johnson. And they recruited Wallace to come along. He was student council president, he was a former Marine, all that kind of stuff. And he married a woman of very questionable moral value, who had a lot of intrigue associated with her life. You like the way I did that?
Yeah.
I have no idea where this part is going to go.
It's going to be on YouTube and stuff like that, but yeah, you're good. That's funny.
Anyway,
I like that.
You like her?
Beautifully put.
she had a what was known at the time as a bohemian lifestyle. And
oh, okay. I've never heard that one before.
Malcolm was there. He wasn't there. He was in and out, and he became kind of an alcoholic in the middle. But at any rate, they were married and divorced 3 times. Yeah, married and divorced 3 times. So he was in love with this woman. But at one point during one of the divorces, she left him and went back to Texas. He was in New York studying for his PhD, and she left him and went back to Texas. And while she was in Texas, she was associated with a theatrical group of which Johnson's sister, Josepha Johnson, was also associated. And a man named Douglas Kinzer was also associated. None of these people you've ever heard of.
Yeah, I never heard of
it. Josepha Johnson, never heard of her. Johnson's sister.
Yeah.
They too were involved in a rather unique lifestyle. Okay,
a bohemian lifestyle.
There you go. It was a lot of fun-loving stuff going on.
Got it.
And and the wife was also Andrea. She was also involved. So as he finds out, Malcolm finds out that she was involved with Douglas Kinzer, and he drives back to Texas. Takes 3 days to get there. Borrows a gun from a guy who also happened to be an FBI agent. Drives up to where this man is working at the golf shop in Austin, Texas. Walks in, shoots him 5 times, and kills him. Broad daylight. People all around see what's going on, dead. He's arrested immediately, thrown into jail. Somehow he gets marvelous attorneys. John Kofer, who happened to be Lyndon Johnson's attorney, shows up and starts to represent him. He gets out on bail in Texas on a Capital One murder charge on bail. What? Yeah, where they have an express line to the death chamber, right? And this is in the 50s. He gets out on bail. They put him in a hotel a couple miles outside of town. He hangs around. They go to trial pretty quickly. The trial lasts a couple weeks. The defense puts up almost no contest whatsoever. The prosecution decides to just go with the facts, which was he's there, he shoots him, he's witnesses, here's the thing, they didn't find the gun, but they got him with the bloody shirt, the whole thing. No confession. And but they did not go to motive. They didn't even talk about motive, because if they had talked about motive, they would have had to have talked to his wife and Josepha Johnson, which would have tied in Lyndon Johnson.
Okay, and then we've gone deep back to pointing fingers back to Lyndon B. Johnson.
Right. So he's found guilty, murder 1, capital offense, right? Jury of 12, guilty. Sentencing, 11 for death penalty, 1 for life imprisonment, which means that the sentencing goes to the judge, because in Texas you have to have a unanimous verdict for a death penalty. The judge decides that because the prosecution had not proven motive, that he felt that the whole thing was going to be overturned in an appeals court. So he sentenced Malcolm Wallace, to a 5-year sentence, suspended the sentence, and he walked out that day.
What?
Look, Google it. I mean, it's an absolute true story. 6 months later. Oh, no, it gets better. What? 6 months later, this guy shows up working for a defense contractor with a top secret clearance.
No way.
But that's all just an accident, right? There's no tie. It's convenience. Luck. He was a very lucky guy.
Do you think we'll ever get the truth?
No. And the reason for it is, in my humble opinion, is because, and logic is a big part of this. And I've written a whole book about how and why and all this stuff. But the reason for it is, there were a bunch of theories going around. The first one was the Cubans did it, then the Russians did it, then the mafia did it. And trust me, and use logic here when one says this, if any of those 3 were involved, it would have been released.
Oh, instantly. Yeah. Why would the government hide it then if it wasn't them?
Everybody was afraid of the Russians. Okay, yeah, but that was 50. So why not now? And he said, yeah, it happened. The Russians were behind it, and it was 100 years ago. Okay, so what? That nobody's saying it, even now. Why? because it happened with a group of people who were within the government, people who were not sanctioned by anybody. Nobody from the CIA had a big meeting in Washington and said, okay, we're going to assassinate the president. No, it was people who were high ranking, who knew it was going to happen, who thought it would happen, who let it happen. It was like you sort of knew that terrorists were going to attack, but you didn't really investigate.
Like 9/11?
Something. And there's a lot of, I can back that up with a lot of different people who have also come to that conclusion.
Yeah. And it's all in your book as well. Why,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
But it's just so sad. It's just disgusting. You know, you having a president who got assassinated, and it's just the lies are blatantly there, and yet it's just I understand, because it's like you know, the government has to have some reason to lie to make sure, like, a bigger truth to protect the country. But like you said, in the end, they're just protecting themselves at this point. You know, CIA. You know, we had Kennedy going after the CIA.
That's
I think
right.
it was during. I think he was actually trying to convert to actually have America create our own money again, our own money supply, because the Federal Reserve isn't federal at all. If anyone ever knew that, it has nothing to do with our government. It's a private bank. Because I think it was like Agent 001. It was something he was going to pass so the American dollar was backed by silver again. And you know what I mean? He was gunning for a lot of people. So it's like understandable, like you said, that people in government, they see that like, we ain't gonna let this slide. You know, their pockets getting filled by those people. You know,
no doubt that's part of it. It's also Eisenhower's warning about the defense industry and how they were. I mean, Bell Helicopter was almost bankrupt. Halliburton, which was then Brown and Root, also in very bad straits. And here it is with the United States on the brink of a huge military expense in Vietnam, and Kennedy is ready to pull out. And remember, Eisenhower had dropped off defense spending dramatically, and we were down to bolts and nuts before when Kennedy came into office. And now suddenly these companies are looking at a potential gold mine, and he says, "No, we're gonna take everybody out." There was a memo a few weeks before he was assassinated that was written by him. By his administration, Memo 236 or 239 or something like that, which basically stated that the troops in Vietnam were going to start to come out because he thought that it was a war that we couldn't win.
Yes.
And before Kennedy was buried, the next day after the assassination, Johnson held a meeting in the executive building, not the White House, where he still was, with the Joint Chiefs, and rewrote that memo to allow more troops to be brought into Vietnam. Why was it so important that it happened the day after he's assassinated?
Because everyone's worried about, I mean, they're not worried about the war. They're worried about our president just passed away. We're not thinking about all the stuff that's getting passed or whatever. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Nobody's going to
take advantage of the chaos, right?
Nobody's, yeah.
But it's just so disgusting.
Just, people with power.
Yeah, but it's just, you don't think ever, huh? You don't think maybe like 80, 50 years from now, you think they'll ever...
I think that maybe a theory that came from somebody who was extremely credible. I'll tell you one other thing that sort of gives credence to what I've written there. I don't think I'll use his name, but this is a guy who has recently written a book. He just passed, but he has written a book which became the backbone of a movie that...
Do you remember what it's called? Sorry,
the movie?
Book. Or the book and the movie.
No, I know the book. I'm just trying to...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, keep his name. I can't do it without telling you who it is.
No, you're good. No, you don't have to.
His book became the inspiration for a very, very famous movie that was just produced as a Broadway play.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And shown on TV. He told me that he was involved with the Kennedy administration. He was involved in the communications on Air Force One. He knew the guys involved in the Kennedy administration. He knew Sorensen. He knew all those guys. He read this book, and he told me that what I have written, and he was very cryptic about it, but he said, what I have written could have happened.
That sounds like y'all need to get this book and figure out what really happened here. Because wow, okay,
Could have happened.
and just having someone with such high connections and stuff. It's like
It surprised me.
Yeah, exactly.
It surprised me.
Yeah. Well, have you always had that doubt? Like when you were first writing that book, like is this real act? Am I just
no?
Like when
I'm
it came
not
to your
alone.
research, yeah.
There have been attorneys, well-known attorneys, people who have standing, who have said if Lee Harvey Oswald were brought to court today on the evidence that was released in the Warren Commission or evidence since, he would never get to trial. There's not enough evidence to book the guy. There was nothing to put him there. There was no smoking gun. The gun was found, but it's not his. There was no graphite on him. He had not shot a weapon. The paraffin test was negative. The palm print showed up on the gun after the gun went to the FBI, and they said there were no prints. And it went back to Dallas, and then they said, okay, there's a print, a palm print. It wasn't Dallas. It went back to archives, and they said, oh, wait, there's a print, a palm print. How does a palm print get on there? There are so many holes in this story. It's not even.
Yeah, Swiss cheese. That's what I'm looking at
Swiss
right
cheese,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all. Oh, we can keep talking about that topic forever. But guys, you definitely I'm getting myself a copy before I leave here today. That's for sure. No, quick question before I hop to your the legacy book. Do you plan on doing anything more like when it comes to deep dives of like historical like cases like that, like assassinations or anything like that? Like, or is it just you had a infatuation with that because you were alive during the assassination, if I'm making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It was something that put the imprint in my brain for sure. I followed it for many, many, many years. And it was because of that one incident that I was able to tie a plot together. But there are other things that have fascinated me about our history and how it's worked. Some good. Yeah, there's a lot, for example, I sort of have this idea for an art story, and I'll give you just a snippet of it, which is one of these paintings. Let's say we get together 4 people.
Yep.
We all have a bunch of money, and we find an artist out there who is got some talent, but he's a little,
cuckoo,
little on the edge. Right?
Yeah.
So we go in and we buy up all his stuff for basically nothing because he's a starving artist.
Yep.
And then I sell one of those paintings to you for twice the value. Then you sell that same painting to one of the other guys for twice that value. Then he sells it to another guy for twice that value. And you do that for a while until you get the price up to about $500,000 or so, right? So you buy something for $1,000 and you get it up to about $500,000. Mm-hmm. Now, we all have owned all of this guy's property. Now, just say, for example, the guy dies. No more art. It's a trapped audience. Okay. So suddenly there's some, talk about this guy. And maybe he has some talent, maybe he doesn't, but he's dead. Now there's a story. But the thing about it is how the value is not because you're going to sell it to somebody else, but because we could take the entire collection and donate it to the Ghent Museum of Art at the current market value.
And use that as a
dollar for dollar tax break. So we bought it for $1,000 and we can get a $500,000, a $1 million today, right now. You can do that at current market value. And you didn't pay taxes on it, but you get the tax benefit.
And there's no way, like laws around, there's nothing.
No, it's too big a business.
Yeah. Wow.
Just think about the tax break for these guys.
No, exactly.
What do you think these things are going for? A banana taped to the world for $6 million. What is that?
Wow. Oh, so that's kind of like damn. So that's like what politicians will buy art and do it. So that's basically what you're explaining, is in a sense. Damn. Wow.
It's a little loophole that means.
So is that something you're going to dive into more, like when it comes to your next book, like say like corruptions and like certain cases? Is there any like big cases where there's?
I'll have to do some more investigation on that one.
Okay, no, well, I'm excited I'll keep my eye out then. I'll definitely keep my eye out. But actually, talk about books. Let's speak about your current book now, the Chronicle Legacies.
I started it as a story that was festering in my head for a long time. And this story about the fascination of mankind, not mankind, but the fascination of civilization with gold, and how people get crazy over the madness, become insane about acquiring this metal. And the gold rush was the perfect opportunity to do it. So I invented this character and his wife, and they traveled from Philadelphia, which is my hometown, so I knew it, to California for the gold rush. They went out as a farmer, as a part of the Manifest Destiny nonsense, and they get there and they decide and found out there's gold, and so they start looking for gold as well. She gets pregnant. It's not really a atmosphere for a baby or a wife and that sort of thing. So he sends her back to Philadelphia, where she dies in childbirth. The baby is raised by her sister in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, he stays in California and strikes it rich. How he strikes it rich is largely through his association with the local Indian tribe. And that's part of the story. So I won't give you all of that.
Cholok, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that
Cholok.
right.
Yeah.
Cholok. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And his character is important to the story because it adds that the humanity of the American Indian against comparing the humanity of the American Indian and his tribe against the insanity of the other world. And there's a little piece in there about a little soliloquy kind of thing where Cholok talks to Amos, who's the lead character, and he said that Indians have never cared about a stupid gold rock. They don't use it as a trade. They don't use it as a weapon. They don't make a tool out of it. It's useless. It's soft. It makes no sense. It has no value. And yet you white people are willing to murder your own family to get it. What sense is that? Because you don't have any use for it either, other than the value that the other guy thinks it's worth.
No, exactly.
That's it. There's no value to it. It's not like an apple or a piece of meat. It's just a rock. So it doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't. So the story is about how to handle the kind of wealth who comes to see him out in California. And it's all, there was a book called Travels with Charlie that Steinbeck wrote, and Charlie is a dog, and he connected all these little pieces. And in my book, Rufus, who is a dog that I had, also connects all of these pieces together. And he's a character in the book. I gave him a character for sure.
Yeah, exactly. You have to. Come on, man's best friend.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And
was he? And actually, that's actually one of the questions. Was he more than just like his partner in crime? Was there more of his character, that you wanted the audience to understand? Like, was he more of just like the relief during like the trials and tribulations of Amos, or was it just more just you were like, hey, a dog? It'd be cool to have a dog partner in there. If I'm making sense.
No, you are, and
Yeah.
and that's a very good question because we as in this age tend to make dogs human. They give them like human names, and they put them in carriages and dress them
I
up
seen
and
that
stuff.
last
and
week actually. I was like,
walk them around and do all kinds of crazy stuff. This is a dog. I mean, he's a dog's dog, and he is this guy's best friend. And he doesn't try to make him anything else. The dog is that's who he is.
it's an animal. He's an animal.
That's what he is.
He's a beast.
And they're perfectly fine that way. And so I didn't, to answer your question, no, I didn't try to make him anything more than what he was.
Okay.
And that was enough for this story.
Exactly. No, I respect. Yeah, no, that's a good one. And another question I wanted to ask was like, what inspired you? Like, I know you, like, was it that inspired you? Was that what you were explaining earlier? How, Cholok
Cholok, yeah.
was explaining like why you wanted to tackle that human question of like, why do we choose riches over our own loved ones, our families? Like, was that like something that inspired you to pick the gold rush specifically as like a main picture in this? Because everyone's leaving their family. Well, not saying your main character did leave his wife behind, but just every other people who've done that.
Actually, in this case, what I tried to emphasize is what was being taken away from them, and how Tulloch was trying to protect his own, and how Amos was helping him do that. It is more about the survival of their culture, and how this worthless gold rock and Amos's cooperation was going to help make that happen. And that's basically how the story rolls out.
And just showing how complete, this fractured history that we look back on, how there was actually a lot of, intertwined connections and communities that actually prospered for both communities instead of just, one side or the other.
In order to show the conflict, I had to really invent some dastardly antagonists. And I did that. There's some bad guys in this who are motivated just by greed. So I invented these dastardly antagonists to carry the plot and to show the conflict and advance the plot to the end. Because in every book there needs to be that overcoming of whatever obstacle is in the way of the character. Otherwise, it's just too boring.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's actually follows up to my question was about Henry's challenging journey out to the West Coast. Like, what was it that like? Was it hard to build because you have to think about you have to go back to history, be like, all right, what were they famine, making sure they might get eaten by bears, like was it challenging to figure out what he should go through to learn certain aspects of when he meets his father? Am I making sense? Or,
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
There is a lot of research involved. You have to go back, or the author has to go back into every scenario, especially when you're writing something of a historical, something that's not current, to make sure that what one's writing isn't dismissed by the reader by saying, oh, yeah, well, that never happened. I mean, how can that? So you have to sort of follow the route. And what I did in this scenario was, by the time the kid was old enough to travel, he was 17 years old. So the money had already been in place. So he wasn't coming across the country on a wagon train. He came by boat. But that trip also became a hardship in many ways, and he had to overcome some of that along the way. And there were challenges to him and some learning experiences along the way that helped highlight what was happening during that time, the prejudice and those kinds of things. So
so it was interesting, especially it must have been fun though, just to go back and just see just the daily life that people would go through. It's like, damn, even just like you said, even going back to your point earlier, like what people will sacrifice just for this piece of gold. Like when you have, well, I guess some people may, it's like, oh, but you don't know who you are until you're uncomfortable. It's like, but to go all that way and sacrifice your family, your loved ones, just for some gold and riches, it's absurd. But maybe it's just, because sadly, I don't know, reflecting now on society in America. America's beautiful. I appreciate the opportunities as it's got me to me and you. It got me to be here at La Broche, a great bakery, but like, it's just sad when it consumes people to the point where their humanity is gone and all they think about is just money over everything. It's just they disregard. If I'm making sense, but sorry, that was a little rant, but
it is. I find it is easier to become pessimistic these days than it is to be optimistic, and I find myself that way a lot, especially now, looking at the news. And understanding history the way I do, and the rule of law, and the people who have sacrificed themselves, their lives even, for the Constitution and our rights, to watch some of that start to be eroded by nothing else but fear, which is the driving force today. It's not political ideology. It's not a logical conclusion based on history. It's fear. Fear that someone is going to hurt you, take something away from you, or ostracize you from the life that you have now. And that's being promulgated by many different groups, not just one, many groups.
Yeah, 100%.
And for that, it's easy to become pessimistic. But that being said, I lived through Vietnam. I lived through the Vietnam War. I lived through Nixon. And the people before me lived through McCarthy. And those political upheavals. Those sorts of things can be looked at as very detrimental to us, but they're also very much in the realm of character building. If we can come out of this, or when we come out of this, I believe we'll come out stronger. One of the things, I just traveled back to Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't been there it's my hometown, and you can't take Philly out of the boy.
Yeah.
You're there, no matter what happens, no matter where I live.
Exactly.
I'm from Philly over there. Yo,
Yeah,
come
the
on
accent,
now.
yes, I love it.
Yo, it's water.
Yeah,
it's water, and we're going over there.
Yeah, gonna go to the park over there, gonna have some nice clam
Gonna
chowder.
get a hoagie.
Oh, hoagie. Oh, you gotta go with the hoagie out there.
But I traveled back to Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and I have a favorite restaurant that I go to and all that. But
Yep.
in driving to this restaurant, I had to go up one of the back roads in Philadelphia, and I saw how much those neighborhoods along that road had changed. And I remember them the way they were, and now I see them the way they are. And I was overwhelmed. People of every single description were walking around. It wasn't all white, all black, all Asian. It was people of every description that you can imagine walking from place to place, and stores featuring foods and retail of every determination. You could not find a more diverse neighborhood than 12th Street. And it was amazing to me. It was astounding, and it was uplifting to see that what this word was, gentrification, where people were moving out. Yeah, there was, restorations going on, and these houses were changing, and there's a lifestyle to a house, a life cycle to a house that needs to change. Bones need to be revisited. But I believe that that's the sign that there's hope in front of us, because people will get past this and find commonality and be able to overcome this nastiness that we're going through and find the way to coexist peaceably. One more story. When I was in Florida, there was a guy living next to me. He was a curmudgeon-y kind of guy. And
this was back in 2008 when you were working with the tribes?
No, this was recently.
Oh,
this
okay.
was like 16.
Okay.
Like I said, I've lived in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
So he lives next door to me. And I found out that he, and I had spoken very few words to this man. And I had done him a favor at one point, and he came out and walked over and handed me this old beat up Tupperware bowl, and inside it was Irish soda bread, which surprised me because it was really good. Right?
Irish soda bread?
Yeah, it's like a.
Not familiar.
It's something that you would know if you were from Boston.
Oh, okay. Well, damn, now I'm bugging because I'm from New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Oh, you should
so
know.
now I'm bugging.
You know what? You should know.
Irish soda
You'll have to
bread.
look that one up.
No, I feel like as soon as I see it, I'm going to be mad at myself for not knowing. All my friends are probably laughing at me as I'm like, why do you not know this right now? Damn, I'm going to look it up and find it and be like, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
So he gave, and I was surprised he was really good. So it sort of opened the door for me to get to know him. And I found out that he's from Boston. He was an Irish Catholic, and he hated the Kennedys, which was astounding. I mean, you come from Boston and you're a Catholic. You love the Kennedys, but not him. He was a right-wing, conservative, hard-line guy, right? And I'm not.
Yeah. He's like, just leave it longer.
I'm not far left.
Yeah.
I'm sort of a middleist kind of guy. So I kind of hang on both sides. I'm more liberal than not, but
I think it's a majority of people, honestly, in America.
So.
I think we're on the same boat, man. It's just we all just want to live life, be happy. But I don't want to feel. But yeah, anyways, that's why I feel like, anyways, the majority
you're right.
of people.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I had this Tupperware bowl, and I saw him pulling the driveway one day, and I ran out with the empty bowl, and I saw him walking into the garage, and he was carrying 2 bags, and he had his back to me, and I yelled out, "Mahoney!" And he, without turning around, he yelled back, "Get off my property!"
He doesn't know.
And I knew it could be my friend right there on the spot. I knew this guy and I were going to be tight. You know?
Yeah.
So we developed this long friendship. Well, not long friendship. It was a friendship. And we had a lot of conversations, which is odd because you would think that a guy of that ilk wouldn't want to talk to a pinko like me. But what I found out was that he was a remarkably talented man, well-educated, well-read, and understood history. He came at it from a different perspective than I did, but he knew what he was talking about, unlike what we are subjected to today, which is facts without basis. However, in our conversations, which we had many, at some point, one of us would say, "I didn't know that." And that one phrase led me to believe that I could work with this guy and that we could come to compromise on issue and we could figure out pragmatically what worked and move forward. You can have a conservative opinion. That's a good thing. If both of us think alike, only one of us is thinking. So you have a different opinion, I have a different opinion, we work it out, we come to compromise, we make things work. That's what America's built on. So my conservative, right-wing John Bircher on the other side and me had great conversation, and that's my hope for America.
And that's why I do, even though I'm only 29, I was born in 96, but like I remember growing up and it was never a big deal. Like I never thought of it, like even after high school, like, oh, if you were a Republican, Democrat, it's like, hey, if you know what I mean, obviously we kind of had that, I feel like the mindset was just the assumption. We already knew like we're not going to be agreeable about everything, but at least we, like you said, we have the conversation and understanding that we don't know everything, and how are we going to know if we don't understand why people think this way and have that conversation, right? But I think people now, I think there's like you said, there's hope and change. We see it every day. And I think people are waking up to realizing, like, I'm sick of the negativity and the hate of my fellow neighbor or friend or brethren or maybe a stranger that you could be friends with. You know, it's just like, hey, you're human. We're all just trying to get through this together. Why not? Let's get through it together, right?
That's right.
No, but I was gonna say, let me ask one more question, and then we're gonna sign up. So what do you hope that the listeners and the readers of Legacy get from it? Like after reading the book, like what do you want them to learn, what they want to take with them for their day-to-day?
I would hope that what I've written is inspiring enough that someone turns a page to look further at our history, to try to appreciate some of the characters from the perspective of human rather than Hollywood. The very few representations come from Hollywood that are real enough to be factual. They are abbreviated and homogenized. In what I've written there is based in fact. I mean, these are things that actually happened, and things that someone can appreciate from a different perspective to understand what the American Indian is going through right now. It's a fourth world nation. It's not a third world nation. Third world nation has hope that they will survive someday and become a country again. American Indians don't have that hope. There's no country waiting for them. We've taken all of that away. The only thing that they can have is their history. You can't go back to Ireland and say, okay, I'm going back to the home country. There's no home country to go to. And if you've been to reservations, you'll understand what I'm saying.
I would want to. I definitely want to open my eyes. I've always wanted to. I just never took the time, and I definitely should.
there's a lot to it, and what we've done, what the European nation and the early United States, and unconsciously now, because they're out of focus, and largely because the American Indians have never had a voice. They don't have a Martin Luther King. They don't have an Emmett Till. They don't have anybody speaking for them. No one has risen to the top. Red Cloud was there, but he was killed. All of these things that have happened. Black Elk Speaks, very good book.
Yeah, Black Elk.
These things are in the past, and there's really no. I think maybe if someone were to say, "What do you think about Indians today?" they would say, "Well, they had the casinos." There are 800 tribes in the United States, maybe 35 or 40 have casinos, and most of them casinos are financed by, other than Indians. Is there some benefits? Sure, there's some benefits, but
they're more than just that.
It's a much deeper issue than just that.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
And the thing is, it's like you look at the history and the impact they've done for us. Like, I just read a book. I actually had him on my podcast. Shout out to Andrew Biggio. He was on my podcast. What he does, which is so cool, he travels the world in America interviewing World War II veterans. And one of them was a gentleman, a Native American, who was a code speaker during the war.
Windtalkers.
Yes, windtalkers. That's what it is.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what I mean? Because the Japanese couldn't, or the Germans couldn't, they couldn't translate their code. So it's literally impossible. So it's like, you mean, how much of an impact, how many lives were saved because of what they did for us, and what did we do to return for them? You know what I'm saying?
But most of them were vilified after they come out. And the other thing that people don't know about that was that every one of those code talkers had a white serviceman partner up with them.
Wow.
And their job was that if that Comanche was captured, that they were to kill him. They were not allowed to be captured.
Wow. Oh, because they translate. Wow.
If they would translate, the whole code would be broken.
Wow. I didn't know that. Wow. Dang. Paul, man, damn. I could sit here for hours to talk to you about history. That's amazing.
We'll do another one sometime.
Yeah. No, I would love to. I'd be honored. Paul, man, thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming on. This was a great conversation, man. I was honestly a little nervous in the beginning just because I didn't know. I'm like, oh, dang, because this is we never met, you know what I mean? So it's like, but I'm usually good on the fly. But
yeah, you are. This was a great interview.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Conversation, it was good. Yeah.
Hey, that's what I want. It's just a good conversation. And honestly, it's great to talk to someone that's a history nerd, because I do love history and I need to get back into it too, man. It's just fascinating.
What's your main? What do you think?
Honestly, World War II. That's just it's just something about it. There's still so much unknown about it that we don't know about. Honestly, I'll have to get you next time. I'll have your number, so next time I'll contact you. I'll get those. The Rifle 1 and the Rifle 2 with the World War II veterans that tell their story.
Okay.
I'll get you a copy of them
Please
for you to read. They're awesome.
Right.
But Paul, before we sign off, please tell the people how they can support you, how they can get your great books, and anything else you'd like to share. The floor is yours.
My books are available on Amazon. Just go to Amazon, put in my name, Paul Eberz, and Legacy or Smoke or Y or whatever, and it'll take you to that little Amazon page, and you can buy the book, make me $1.50 richer.
Yes. I was gonna say maybe a candy bar, but I don't know about that anymore.
Maybe a candy bar. Not anymore. No.
Hey, thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate you so much.
A real pleasure, man.
Yeah, thank you. And guys, thank you as always for listening to the podcast. And that camera's dead, but it's all right. We're going to continue on. Thank you for doing the best you can for yourself and the people around you, because you know why. You deserve it. Have a great day and see you in the next episode.